There once was a king who had an only son, the precious prince. The prince was raised, pampered, spoiled in the palace. As the boy was growing older, the king turns to the prince and he says, "My dear son, I want you to leave the palace for a while. Go out into the real world, meet regular people, expand your horizons, strengthen yourself, become more mature. Here's a bag of gold and silver. Go on and good luck." The prince leaves the palace, enters the real world for the first time in his life. But very quickly, he loses his way and he goes astray. He gets caught up with friends who have a negative influence on him. He spends his life drinking in the pub, wasting his time, squandering his money. One morning, after a long night of drinking, he wakes up, smelly clothing, he's dirty, and he has a wake-up call. And he remembers who he is. "I'm the prince. I'm not just a regular peasant on the street like you guys are. I must return home, back to the king, my father, back to the palace." And so he runs to the palace gates trying to get in, but the guards stop him. He says, "Don't stop me. I'm the prince. I want to get in." They laugh at him. "Look at you. You're not the prince." And he tries to talk to them and to explain to them, but he realizes he's forgotten the language. He forgot how to speak like a prince. Nobody believes him. And so, losing all hope, he sits down on the ground and begins to cry. The sounds of his cry reach the window of the king's private chamber. And the king hears a familiar sound. And then he realizes that's the sound of my son, the prince. He runs out of the palace to greet him. He's shocked to see how he looks, but he's so happy that he's returned. And he tells his son, "I'm so happy you came back. Welcome home. Come inside and we'll figure out how to turn you back into a prince." The Baal Shem Tov said that is the story of each one of us. Before we came down into this world, our souls were in heaven, enjoying the spiritual delights, basking in the presence of God. At some point, God turns to our soul and he says, "Enough with the comforts of living in heaven. I want to send you down to the real world, the world of many distractions and temptations. I want you to learn how to live all of your spiritual values, even in a world that's trying to tempt you away from them." And so we come down to this world, but very soon we lose our way and go astray and get caught up with all of the temptations and all of the distractions, and we forget who we are. We forget that we're a child of God coming down to this world with a purpose, for a mission to fulfill. Rosh Hashanah comes and we have a wake-up call. We want to return back to the palace, back to our Father in heaven. And we come to the synagogue and we try to convince, but we've forgotten who we are. Maybe even we don't know how to pray properly. So then we blow the shofar. The shofar is the cry of the soul. And God hears the sounds of the shofar and he says, "Ah, my dear child, I'm so glad you've come back. Look at you. You may not look like a prince anymore, but I know your inner voice. I recognize that cry. I'm so glad you've come back. Come inside. God welcomes you with open arms, and we'll figure out how to turn you back into the person that you're intended to be in this world." So when we blow the shofar today, think about that no matter how far you may have strayed and how much you may have forgotten about your purpose here in this world, there's always a path back to heaven.